All right, so now we have the midpoint formula. So we have two random points, A and B, x1 sub y1 and x2 sub y2, are points in a coordinate plane. So the midpoint would be this. You're just going to do giant M, that means midpoint, parentheses, x sub 1 plus x sub 2 divided by 2, parentheses, y sub 1 plus y sub 2 divided by 2. So you're literally just adding the x coordinates together, dividing by 2, adding the y coordinates together, dividing by 2, which makes perfect sense because you're just finding the average value of both pairs. You're finding the average x value, you're finding the average y value, and makes perfect sense because like the midpoint's the balancing point. We're actually going to do this for a triangle later on in the school year. We're going to find the balancing point of a triangle, and it's literally the same formula. You just have an extra point. There's a third point. And then just another way to think about it, this is going to help us, is the x midpoint equals x1 plus x2 divided by 2. So this means x value for the midpoint, and then we have the y value. All right, this is going to help us later on. This is just one way to think about the same thing. All right, and that's just the y midpoint. And we can even elaborate and then say, well, the midpoint would be x sub m comma y sub m. All right, so we're going to find the midpoint of this. So we'll call this, we didn't label this, we'll call this A and B. So A is 1, 2, and B is negative 3, 4. All right, so we can quickly count this and find it in like 2 seconds. Counting is a great technique, but it's not always gonna work. We have to be able to use the formula as well. What if the numbers are really far apart and just uncountable almost? Or what if there's some crazy decimals like we'll do in the next problem? So that's going to be x1, y1. That's going to be x2, y2. And it doesn't matter which point's which because we're just adding them together. I'm going to rewrite the midpoint formula. Repetition. Just like how you stretch before practice. You shoot free throws every day. You hit off a tee in baseball and softball. We got to do the basics so we can master the hard stuff. So I'm going to add the x's together. 1 plus negative 3 divided by 2. And then do the same for the y's. Those go together as well. 2 plus 4 divided by 2. So 1 plus negative 3 is going to be negative 2 over 2. 2 plus 4 is 6. Notice how it's a comma. This is a ordinate or order pair. So that's why the midpoint's going to be negative 1 comma 3, which I could tell right away. But we're getting practice using this brand new formula. All right, practiced with very easy numbers, just to get used to it. But now we're going to do the same thing. We found the distance between Darby and Davidson High School. Now we're going to find the midpoint between Darby and Davidson High School. All right, so looking at this, we're going to translate this into something we can work with, some crazy numbers. And again, if you remember, since Darby and Davidson's so close, we're just going to focus on the seconds and minutes and seconds. So we're going to say that Darby has a coordinate of 2.06 and 10.05. I'm going to call that my x sub 1, my y sub 1. And then same thing over here. Davidson, we're going to translate this to 2.58, comma 9.21. We'll call that x sub 2, y sub 2. Okay, so some crazy numbers. We got some crazy decimals. This makes it counting technique a lot harder. So this is why we need to be able to use the midpoint formula. We need to be able to understand it, how to use it, so on and so forth. All right. So I'm going to do 2.06 plus 2.58 divided by 2. And then I'm going to do 10.05 plus 9.21 divided by 2. And then, just a future reference, let's talk about a calculator. I like to use an actual calculator. I hate iPhone, iPad calculators. If you plug this into a calculator, it should look like this. Let's just talk about the X portion of it. You need to add both numbers together in parentheses. So your calculator is going to add what's in parentheses together, then divide by 2. Or you can just add them together, get the number, then divide by 2. But we need to make sure we know how to use calculators. But once I plug this all into a calculator, my X portion, I'm going to get 2.32 over here. Again, if I plug it into a calculator, it should look something like this. What's nice, if you're good at using a calculator, you're going to be a lot more quicker and efficient at solving problems. I hate when students know how to do the math, but they don't know how to use a calculator, and then they get a problem wrong. It makes me want to cry. But that would be the coordinates of the midpoint between Darby and Davidson High School, right there. All right. So now we got some Canvas problems. You have the ability to count or use the formula. The second one, you have to use the formula. And just a little fun fact, when we're solving Canvas problems, take a screenshot and put it in Notability. That way you can draw on pictures and so on and all that fun stuff. That's always a good habit to get into. But in this problems right here, the pictures are given to you in Notability already. I'm just talking about on quizzes or something like that. All right, do these problems and then we'll talk about more things in the next video.